Okay, now speaking of context, we saw some context in the desktop app. We saw some multimodality in the desktop app. We saw some related people in the desktop app. Let's go outside of the desktop app and go right into the IDE. Mark, if you want to take us away, I'll give a little bit of high-level context super fast. This is really powerful. Whether you have you're inside the GitHub ecosystem, the JetBrains ecosystem, the Visual Studio Code ecosystem, the Atlassian one, or the Bitbucket one, it doesn't matter, right? This is a system that is a workflow copilot across your entire kind of your entire developer, day to day, right? The browser, the IDE, and the collaborative environment. It doesn't start and stop in the IDE. I think the most important thing is that what you do in each of those pillars informs the context that should be used to ground these copilots. So let's go ahead and do this, Mark. Pretty excited, and we'll see what's up here.
Awesome. Yeah, I got my screen shared right now. Let me know when you guys can see it.
Sure can. Looking solid.
Awesome. So before I get into it, I'll kind of tee up Rutvik at the end of my little demo here. But basically, my environment, I've got my web browser here, and then I've got VS Code, which is one of our many integrations for IDEs. But we also have IntelliJ here, which I won't touch up on this demo. However, so basically we have an NPM package, and specifically we have our open source TypeScript SDK that was published just a couple weeks ago. And if you haven't seen the live stream for it, please feel free to take a look at it and see some of the awesome work that we're doing to open source some of our APIs to build these wonderful experiences on top of it. But yeah, so as an open source developer, I've just found, the Pieces SDK, and I'm like, okay, what I could do is I could come down, take a look at some of the code snippets and all that fun stuff. However, I could just get right on into it. So what I'll do is I'll just open up the repo, and then I'll clone it locally. And I've already done this to save everyone the time. But yeah, so I've cloned it locally, and now I'm in my VS Code IDE here. I'm like, okay, great. I've got this all local. Now, how do I freaking use this thing? Very, very simply, I've got our Pieces extension downloaded. I've got our Copilot over here, our Pieces Copilot, that can be moved to anywhere really. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to right click. I'm going to ask Copilot about the repo. And specifically what I'm interested in is how can I create an asset? Asset using the assets API. And I could go in here and I could find the specific file, but I just pointed to the top level repo and I'm going to let it do it for me. And here we go. It said, these are some of the relevant files. Now let's see what it can do for me here.
Boom, point you right in the right direction.
Nice. There we go. And then it's really quite awesome. The assets create new asset API. That's awesome. It gives me some of the relevant files. So I can jump to this one really quickly and say, oh, great, this is the API I need to actually use this thing, which is fantastic.
Find, create, and there you go. But yeah, open the file. Nice.
So then basically I know that this is the endpoint, or this is the actual function I need, and then it calls that one. However, let's see if it can provide me some code to actually create this. Oh man,
you might need to select and ask.
Let's try this. Let's try this one again. And actually, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm just going to go over to this. I'm going to ask it.
Nice.
And let's see if it can provide me with some code.
There we go.
Nice.
Solid. And Mark, one thing to note, by the way, you're using GPT 3.5 Turbo. When you have a really large file open or a really large project open, one of the things that's important to understand is the context window, right? So we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to try and pack in the important parts of what you're looking at, the project you have open, the tabs, the files, everything like that, and send it into the large language model in a compact context form factor. So, one of the things you could do is obviously add context, but you could also choose the GPT 16K context window, which is about 3 or 4 times larger than the one out of the box. So if you open up that OpenAI one, right there it is. You can say, hey, I want to be able to pack more of this current context into the LLM, and that might help you, kind of get the expected result faster.
So yeah, thank you so much for that, Savo. Yeah, so now I have the actual code that I'm looking for to create that. I can either keep this open and jump into my new project or file or folder where I'm trying to achieve this goal, or what I can do is I can save it so that I can have this for future use. I can come over to our tree view and where you can view all of your saved materials. And then what I can do here is I can see the saved code snippet with all of the awesome metadata that Pieces provides here, such as a title, description, tags, language, even has a related person of myself, obviously, because I created this. And then any sort of helpful links that kind of goes along with this stuff. So that's really quite awesome. So yeah, that's pretty great. Another couple things within the Copilot here that we brushed over a little bit is the ability, just like within the Pieces desktop app, to switch whatever Copilot runtime you want, whether it's a local LLM, which I currently do not have downloaded because I'm on a brand new kind of testing environment, or testing environment for the demo here. However, we also have the ability to choose between some of the OpenAI models as well as some of the Palm 2 models here. And then also, kind of like what Mac was touching on, we also have the ability to configure any sort of context that you want. And this stuff as well, I've got to do a huge shout out to one of our really awesome developers here at Pieces, which has been on the live streams a couple times, Caleb, to all the really awesome work here. And another little thing to touch on is that we're able to move now so quickly, and also should see a lot of feature parity between not only VS Code, but also Jupyter, Obsidian, and IntelliJ. And you should notice very similar UI associated with it as well as UX. And that's thanks to basically just a shared module, enabling us to be able to make that code once and then just release it across all 3 different plugins, which is fantastic. But yeah, here you can see any sort of configured folders, any configured snippets that you want, as well as the ability to, just like Max said, reference any other conversations that I previously had. And then with that, we can do some of the basic operations, editing the title, deleting it, viewing any sort of descriptions associated with this, pinning the conversation, as well as generating any sort of kind of auto magical description associated with that conversation itself, so that we can go ahead and view and catch up where that conversation had left off. Is there anything else that I may have missed or that I could highlight in the VS Code Copilot here?
No, I think it's pretty spot on, and thematically here it is all about like getting the capabilities of the Copilot and making them available and grounded wherever you are, right? Because our goal is to keep the developer in flow. So we don't necessarily want you switching to the browser or switching, maybe to the desktop app or wherever you are, just to ask a quick question or to, generate a repair or something like that. And the other thing is like, a lot of the Copilots today, right, they are grounded in a single tab or in a bunch of cloud data that you may or may not have access to. The unique differentiator about the Pieces Copilot is that it is understanding both online and offline, what's going on in the research and development flow where you're working in the browser. How you're building on that to write code in the IDE and maybe collaborate with people in like Teams or GChat or Slack. And so I think like being horizontal really gives you some experiences that you're maybe not going to get out of the copilots as they stand today. And certainly it's going to take something like a lighter on-device model like Llama 2 and make it perform way better than you would expect, even in an offline kind of air-gapped environment. So really, really pumped about that. Thank you, Mark. And I know we've got a lot more coming up with JetBrains and some of the other integrations. But